As I have stated many, many times at this point, I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and if you're watching this, I bet you do too. Even after 2 decades, I still haven't been so moved or awestruck by any film or saga as much as this 3-headed masterpiece. One aspect I've always enjoyed in pop culture are monsters and how they're defined in their respective mythos. From the Locust in Gears of War to the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park, finding the differences and strengths of these creatures has found a permanent residence within my mind. This applies to my favorite trilogy of all time as well, with the ground soldiers beholden to the forces of darkness, orcs.
Greetings, Legionnaires. This is a video I've been wanting to make for such a long time now because the differences between these nasty combatants has always interested me. And because Peter Jackson's films seem to kind of inhabit their own space entirely, separate from the books, I wanted to focus on those because those are the ones I know best. Rest in peace, Tom Bombadil. But anyway, if you found this video because of the Sting one I made recently, thank you so much. If you haven't seen that one, please go and check it out after. Alright, let's dive in.
Firstly, let's define what orcs are. From what we hear in the films, they were once elves twisted by the dark forces of evil. These elf-like features are most prominently found in the pointed ears. Don't be like Treebeard and confuse hobbits for orcs though, it's a common misconception outside of the Shire. Anyway, orcs aren't the biggest of Sauron's forces. They don't usually stand as tall as a normal Gondorian, but rather move in a somewhat hunched manner. They move a bit closer to the ground for a biped and are seldom seen alone. They are the scrappiest of fighters and make up the glut of Sauron's armies. They often wield blades, spears, or just use their teeth to assault the world of men. Orcs typically possess more intelligence than some of the bigger and stronger forces of darkness, often vying for more power among their own. All the other creatures I'll be discussing today, according to the films, aka Sting, aka please watch that other video I mentioned, are all orcs. However, the difference in their stature, strength, and standing are the components that make them all unique. Let's begin with the goblins found in the mines of Moria. What a good segment in the film.
To the bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Okay, focus. Here we are introduced to the denizens of the deep as far as orc culture is concerned. Basically, if regular orcs share traits with elves, then goblins can be drawn sparingly to that of dwarves. That comparison is more about where both dwarves and goblins can be found, not so much their qualities. How freaky would it be to see 1,000 dwarfs crawl out of ceilings like spiders? Oh my goodness. Ugh. Let's start there, the movement of the goblins. Unlike any other orc on this list, goblins can crawl on flat surfaces, which provides a great tactical advantage for ambushing and is just genuinely terrifying. Taking the hunched movement of the regular orc to a new level, goblins move very close to the ground and often utilize both arms and legs. This can indicate a few different things. They have a natural affinity for the earth, it allows them to move in and out of tight spaces found in caves, or is necessary for understanding their surroundings in pitch black darkness. The last hypothesis in this list might have a little bit more of a leg to stand on, or legs? Still, you get the pun. I say this because if you look at a few of these just gorgeous faces here, you'll notice that this one in particular has massive eyes. This design choice, along with some behind-the-scenes features, leads me to believe that the goblins have adapted so well to their surroundings that in some instances, certain members have developed gigantic eyeballs, allowing them to take in any shred of light found in the mines. Another standout feature found in this specific type of orc, in case you missed it, are their massive numbers. We later see bigger armies in the trilogy, to be sure, but goblins seem to move in these larger groups naturally. Truly fascinating. You may also notice that most of the armor and weaponry utilized by these little guys is very much a hodgepodge, or smattering of things they cobble together. This is not a uniformed outfit we are looking at for any individual or the group as a whole, if you get my meaning. I alluded to it briefly, but goblins aren't very tall, or at least it's harder to discern due to their movements. They also seem to act a bit more independently compared to regular orcs, almost like a rabid pack that was lost in the mountains ages ago. It's not like Saruman said, "Ho ho ho, I've tricked the Fellowship to go into the mines. Now, my pretties, corner them until the Balrog shows up." Not that Saruman is the Wicked Witch of the West or anything, but I wanted to point that out for any who might be confused as to why the goblins are after Frodo and the gang in the first place. They seem to just attack anything that moves in the mines, except for large demons made of fire and wreathed in shadow. Last thing about goblins, they aren't the best shots. This could be due in part to the fire illuminating and obfuscating their eyesight when firing at the Fellowship, or long-distance shooting in general. Lastly, I want to describe the Uruks, along with my personal favorites, the Urukai. Let's begin with the Uruks. Typically as big, if not bigger than a man, Uruks, which means just orc in black speech, tend to be stronger and more aggressive than a usual orc. We don't see too much of them in the films, but do see a turf war break out between them and the regular rabble at Cirith Ungol, near the end of Return of the King. It boils down to Uruks are strong, but garden variety orcs are more cunning. However, now we get into the biggest distinction, in that of Urukai. Full disclosure, I love the Urukai. They're just so cool, and here's why. Did I just rhyme? No. Saruman, the faux white wizard, decided that regular orcs just weren't going to cut it. So instead, he said, you know what we can cut? All of Fangorn. A mistake he'd soon regret. Anywho, Saruman decided to breed, and I quote, orcs with goblin men. This raises a few interesting questions, with this one being at the top of my list. How does breeding this with this end up with this? This could just be a fun line thrown in to showcase Saruman's love of science and progressing his own motives. We see the harvesting process, which might be unique to the Urukai, found in the pits of Isengard. The dirt and mud acting as an incubator while they are enclosed in some malleable membrane. Urukai are the biggest, most savage, and strongest of all the orcs we see in the films. They're also not opposed to cannibalism.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
One major issue with a regular orc army is that they are weakened by sunlight. What does that mean exactly? Well, I don't have the specifics, but it prevents them from moving in broad daylight. For my lovely fighting Urukai, forget about it. These boys love running in the sunlight, and almost as if the whips of their masters were behind them. That's pretty speedy. They also sport some of the finest weapons and armor that the trees of Fangorn and Isengard can supply. Out of any of the groups I've discussed today, they are by far the most regimented. This is most likely due to their strict code of obedience to their master.
Whom do you serve? Saruman.
And lack of cunning that their cousins seem to possess. I could probably make a whole other video on this, but the Urukai are also trained in certain military roles, along with their ultimate goal of destroying the world of men. For today, I'll highlight my cream of the crop, the Berserker. Donning little armor besides a mask and some leggings, Berserkers wield a crazy double-pointed sword and are just nuts about fighting. Look at him go! I could also spend another video talking about the one and only Lurtz, who is just such a great one-note antagonist. A minor villain who actually kills a hero. Heck, he almost kills two. Fun little fact, in the book, Lurtz doesn't even exist, and Boromir is just pegged with a few black arrows. I love this change and the ensuing fight scene. Might be the best one-on-one in the trilogy, besides Gandalf vs. Balrog, of course. In closing, orcs come in many shapes and varieties in the world Jackson has adapted. The ones that often speak and make up the majority of Sauron's forces are more of a common orc. The variety found underground are usually goblins, and the amazing/best ones are the Urukai. The high being the big distinction, serving Isengard, where Uruks work for the unblinking eye of Sauron, generally speaking. Basically, this all boils down to the fact that if Sauron had a force of 100,000 Urukai, well, I'm not sure Minas Tirith would have lasted nearly as long.
Legionnaires, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. If you did happen to come and find us from that Sting video, thank you so much. I want to know if you guys like these types of videos, especially with our new setup here over in the Library of Rivendell. A huge thank you to all the elves for letting us be here, especially Elrond. I know it's kind of, it's one of those things that he took off and he was like, you can go hang out there if you want to. So I appreciate that. He's obviously... he's moved on. But anyway, thank you guys for being here today so much. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. If you want to support us, there's tons of links down below. TikTok, Instagram, Spreadshirt, if you want to get some cool merchandise to kind of support the Legion. And if you want to do something that's completely free, just share this around or like it. That would be great too. Or if you want to dislike it and then tell me why you didn't like it, then that would help as well. I'm always looking for feedback. But finally, we have a Patreon, and if you're donating at $5 and up, you get your name here at the end. So thank you so much to the patrons for doing that. I appreciate you, and I just appreciate you watching this, taking the time. Anyway, until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.